Okay, so we're about to dive into a court case that sounds like it's straight out of a movie. It completely flips what you think you know about spousal support. We've got a rich wife, a poor husband, and a legal ruling that, well, it sent some serious shockwaves through the system.
So let me just ask you this. Can you leave your spouse because they're poor and then turn around and demand that they pay you for support? I mean, it sounds unbelievable, doesn't it? But this isn't a hypothetical. This is the real-life case of Srimati Gudiya, and it put a judge in the very tough spot of deciding where marital responsibility ends and, frankly, where someone trying to game the system begins.
All right, let's get into the details. To really understand this, you've got to know the two main players. And believe me, they came from totally different worlds.
So here's the basic timeline. You have Smet Gudiya, who comes from a well-off family. She marries a man who, and this is a direct quote from her, did not even have enough money to study. So a huge financial gap there. After a while, she leaves him. Her reason? Financial incompatibility. But then, and this is the kicker, in 2019, she files a lawsuit demanding that he, the very man she left for being too poor, pay her financial support.
Now, it gets even more interesting. When she was on the stand under cross-examination, she made a pretty stunning admission. She said she happily left her matrimonial house. Let that sink in for a second. This wasn't a case of someone being forced out or fleeing a bad situation. In her own words, she was happy to leave. And that one little word, happily, oh boy, it ended up being a huge piece of this legal puzzle.
Okay, so to really get why that admission is so important, we've got to take a quick look at the actual law here. What does the rulebook for spousal support in India even say?
The law at the heart of all this is Section 125 of the Code of Criminal Procedure. You can basically think of it as a financial safety net. Its whole purpose is pretty simple: to make sure people who can support their family members, a spouse, kids, parents, actually do it, to prevent them from becoming destitute. You know, it's a law designed for protection, not for profit.
But, and this is a big but, the law has some crucial exceptions. A wife isn't entitled to maintenance under 3 specific conditions. 1, if she's living in adultery. 2, if she leaves without a sufficient reason. We're talking something serious, not just a whim. Or 3, if they're living apart by mutual agreement. So, for the husband here, his whole legal strategy was to prove that at least one of these applied to his wife.
But this case wasn't just about why she left. Oh, no. It got a whole lot messier. It started to involve things that the court itself would later call, and I'm quoting here, outright deception.
And the judge did not mince words. The court's official finding was that there was clearly an attempt to mislead the court. That's not just a slap on the wrist. That's a serious accusation. So what on earth did she do that led the judge to such a blunt conclusion? Well, it started with her identity card. Get this, when she filed for maintenance in 2019, she submitted her Aadhaar card from back in 2016, which listed her husband's name. The thing is, what she failed to mention was that in 2017, she had already amended that card, removing her husband's name and replacing it with her father's. So she was knowingly using an outdated document to create a totally false narrative.
And that little ID card switcheroo was just the beginning. The husband's legal team came forward with more evidence suggesting she hadn't just left him, but had, completely moved on with her life, and with someone else.
Okay, so look at what the husband brought to the table. First, a 2019 voter list that named a completely different man as her husband. Second, a certificate from the village head stating she had actually remarried back in 2018. Now, these are official documents. And her response to this? A simple denial. That's it. She took no legal action to correct the voter list or to challenge the certificate. And in the eyes of a court, that kind of inaction speaks volumes.
So let's just recap for a second. You have her admitting she left happily. You have her saying she left because he was poor. You've got the whole ID card deception. And now you have pretty strong evidence that she remarried. With all of that piled up, the judge was ready to make the final call. And the court's first finding was a thunderclap. It ruled that a wealth gap between families is not a sufficient reason to just abandon a marriage and then demand maintenance. The court affirmed that marriage is a commitment that goes way beyond financial statements. Second, the court came down hard on the deception. There's this legal principle that you have to come to court with clean hands. By intentionally submitting an old ID card, she showed up with very, very dirty hands.
The message was simple. You can't lie to the court and then expect it to help you.
And third, the court addressed that evidence of a second marriage. Since she never legally challenged the documents showing she had a new husband, the court concluded that there was a very strong case that she was, in the eyes of the law, living in adultery. And, as we saw in the rulebook, that's an automatic disqualification for maintenance. Game over.
So, after all was said and done, the final award from the High Court for Smutty Gudiya? A big, fat 0. Nothing. Her claim for maintenance was denied, completely and totally.
But this case wasn't just a loss for one person. It actually became a significant legal precedent, with major implications for how these laws are applied all across India.
So why does this one case matter so much? Well, it reinforces that marriage isn't just a business deal based on who has more money. It sends a really clear message against misusing laws that are designed to protect genuinely vulnerable people. It also sets a very high standard for honesty in court. And crucially, it shows that the law's disqualifications can be applied in a gender-neutral way to anyone who meets the criteria. You know, this case draws a really sharp line in the sand, but it does leave us with a broader challenge. How do we strike that perfect balance between protecting those who truly need help and preventing the very systems designed to protect them from being abused? That's the big question this ruling leaves for all of us to consider.